from Kern Government Television. Welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting. Originating from the County Administrative Center, located at 1115 Truxton Avenue in Bakersfield, California. Grounded in ideas, energy, and innovation, Kern County's vision is to be a driving force for the world's fifth largest economy. And our mission is to exceed expectations of the communities we serve, changing the way they feel about government, those who manage it, and the services it provides. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Thank you, and welcome to the 2 p.m. session of the regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Today is March 19th, 2024. Board to reconvene. The first item is roll call.
Supervisor Peters.
Here.
Supervisor Scrivener.
Here.
Supervisor Flores.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Here.
First, we need a report on actions taken in closed session. Ms. Raison.
Good afternoon, board members. This morning in closed session, you met on items number 31 and 32, and there is no reportable action.
Thank you. We also had a question from the public during public statements this morning that I think you did some research on. Supervisor Perez had asked a question about that, and I think you have an answer.
I do, yes, thank you. I'd like to thank Deputy Stephanie Bowie with my office for working with the elections office, not only just this morning, but throughout the last couple of months to offer whatever assistance we could. And she met with elections folks this morning, and what I've learned since then is that Assembly Bill 626, which went into effect in January, allows voters to return a vote by mail, otherwise known as a VBM ballot, at the voter's assigned polling place without the identifying envelope. And their ballot, or that ballot, will be processed like a normal ballot. Prior to the March 5th, 2024 primary election, it was decided that the county could not meet the statutory requirements to accept VBM ballots without the corresponding identification envelopes for the March elections. There's a tie-in with the e-polling book system, and the connection or the corresponding data that needs to be in place wasn't put into place prior to the primary and today. Under the statute, a VBM ballot can be processed like a normal ballot only if certain conditions are met, including the establishment of procedures to ensure that a voter who casts a ballot pursuant to this legislation does not submit more than one VBM ballot without the identification envelope. The county has been in communication with its e-poll books vendors since last fall, working to update its e-poll books to meet the requirements of this subsection. Due to our size and the fact Kern County has traditional poll sites instead of a vote center, our e-poll books often must be specifically customized to Kern County election processes. The customization, coupled with a late certification of the updated vendor software, gave the county less than a month to configure the e-poll books under the new certified system, verify the system, and adjust training of poll workers. The resulting process was deemed confusing and vulnerable to mistake, and corrections have been requested of the vendor. However, the Elections Division fully expects to accommodate standalone vote-by-mail ballots in November at that election.
So are we out of compliance with that law, or
We are not. The county is in full compliance. The statute says that a county can do this, accept the ballot without the identifying envelope if there are 3 conditions met. And the third condition is that county has established sufficient procedures to make sure that it all works. And that's what the county, that we're still working on.
Thank you for that. Okay. The next item is the consent agenda. All items listed with a CA or a C above the item number are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. We can act on those all in one motion. We don't have anything on for the Kern Sanitation Authority or for the IHSS Public Authority. The agenda today is 33 items, 1 through 33. It's pages 2 through 12 on the afternoon agenda. Items 1, 2, 3, and 4, and item 10 are off consent agenda, are not on the consent agenda. And I believe our planning department would like to hear item 8 off of the consent agenda as well. Is that correct? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, and 10 are not on the consent agenda. Everything else in those 33 items is on the consent agenda. Is there anyone here that would like to make a comment on any of those items that are on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll return it to the board.
Motion on consent?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Okay, that takes us to page 2, back to the top of the afternoon agenda under the resolutions and proclamations portion. Item 1 is a resolution honoring Stephanie Wood in the Public Works Department upon her retirement with 32 years of dedicated service to the County of Kern, and Supervisor Perez will make this presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. Motion on proclamation.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Flies, huh? Time flies when you're having fun. So they say. What do you want me? Josh, you guys coming over? Come on. Come on down here. Come over here too. We'll see in the video how it plays for the public in just a moment, or the at-home public. But there we go. Squeeze in. Let's squeeze in a little more. There we go. Let's put on a good show. Chairman and colleagues, I am sincerely honored to make this presentation today to honor our very own Miss Stephanie Wood upon her retirement, which is later this week, right? And, I'm sorry? Friday. And it helped memorialize in perpetuity the remarkable contributions in the last 32 years. The resolution reads, whereas Stephanie Wood began her career with the Kern County Public Works in October of 1988 as an extra help mail clerk within the Building Inspection Division, where she worked to deliver mail across the department. With the 1980s hairdo, huh? In the good old days. In October 5, 1991, Miss Wood was hired permanently as an office services assistant in the Building Inspection Division, where she remained for the duration of her 32-year stellar career in Kern County. During her esteemed tenure, Ms. Wood was instrumental in assisting the public, and her co-workers was responsible for the administrative functions of the Building Inspection Division. This part's really cool. In 1994, Ms. Wood successfully implemented the Permit by Fax program. Is that cool? I mean, is that old school or what? Which streamlined the permitting system for thousands of applicants until the program was phased out in 2018. And in 2004, Ms. Wood established a standard procedure for permitting mobile homes in Kern County, which led to a successful and competent process that is still in use today. You're a visionary. It maintains accuracy within state housing and community development and Kern County Recorder's Office. Ms. Wood also held the role of research specialist within the Building Inspection Division and was able to access permit records for any property in Kern County dating back to the 1950s. And as part of a modernization project, Ms. Wood was influential in ensuring that old permit records in paper and microfilm were scanned and turned into electronic format for easy access. Ms. Wood's dedication to Kern County and commitment to serving the public has earned her the deep respect and profound admiration of both peers and colleagues. And she is wished the best in her future endeavors. Therefore, it is resolved that the Board of Supervisors, County of Kern, State of California, does hereby honor and commend Stephanie Wood upon her retirement with 32 years of dedicated service to Kern County. It is with great honor I present this resolution to you today. I know we're going to have a moment to hear from Mr. Josh Chaplin, but I wanted to present this to you on behalf of the board and thank you for contributing so much of your life to the well-being of Kern County. God bless you. Here you are.
Yeah, I would just like to add, I think what Supervisor Perez said was very accurate. And I think that the takeaway here, Stephanie, is that you served your full career here with the county, and that's an uncommon thing to see these days, is for employees to be loyal to their employer, and especially to a government agency. So we thank you. If you ask around the office, if you can't find it, Stephanie can. She knows where everything is. So this experience is the hardest thing for us to replace in our jobs, and so that will be missed. And so I thank you for your service. And I'd like to introduce Adrian Nava as our Chief Building Official, and he has a few things to say about Stephanie as well.
Hi, my name is Adrian Nava, and first I just want to say congratulations, Stephanie, on your retirement. Thank you. You know, I had the pleasure of working with Stephanie for the last 4 years at Public Works, and I just want to say that during our time working together, she was very dedicated, very passionate, and very dependable employee. She always cared about everything that happened in building inspection, and she always wanted to make sure that, you know, we do everything correctly. And that's really hard to find on staff. And, you know, Stephanie was very exemplary in that regard. And then, you know, over the last 32 years, you know, at building inspection, we've had a lot of staff changes, retirements. We even merged departments, you know, several times. But Stephanie was always like one constant in building inspection. You know, everybody knew where she sat. I mean, she sat in the same spot for over 20 years. So, you know that we could rely on her, and that we could always get anything that we needed in regards to help or anything BID related. We know that we could always depend on her. So she's going to be very hard to replace, and we are really going to miss her. So congratulations, Stephanie.
Thank you.
She's not going to speak, but she's going to send us a long fax later. And we're going to know exactly how she felt.
Thank you and congratulations. That takes us to item 2, which proclaims March 18th through the 22nd, 2024 as National Surveyors Week in Kern County. And this item will be presented by Supervisor Flores.
Okay, motion on proclamation.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved. All ayes.
Good afternoon. It's a little chilly in the chamber this afternoon, but nothing will get your blood flowing like Surveyors Week. No, but with all seriousness, we stand here to highlight and acknowledge the rich history of the surveying profession and mapping in our country, and the continuing effort and contribution to the improvement and development of our society. Since the earliest days of civilization, people have depended upon surveyors to resolve questions of land boundaries, provide framework for location and building of public and private works, from the pyramids of Egypt to the aqueducts of Rome. Over 200 years ago, leaders of this nation, such as George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, served as surveyors and set the standards for diligence, service, and ethics. Professional land surveyors possess the expertise, research, gather, and analyze the data for replacement and establishment of property boundaries so vital to our system of government. And this is something that touches everything that county government does, especially in land use, with parcel maps, lot line adjustments. We routinely rely upon them for code enforcement, for boundary disputes. Everything that we do really is predicated upon this valuable service in your industry, in your ethics and expertise. So on behalf of our chairman, David Couch, and our board of supervisors, I want to proclaim this week of March 18th, 2023 through March 22nd, 2024 as National Surveyors Week in the county of Kern, dated this day, March 19th, and signed by our honorable chairman, David Couch. And I'd like to present this to you, our county surveyor.
Thank you very much.
Jeremy Brock, thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me make this presentation. It'll be brief, but I do want to say thank you to the Board of Supervisors for graciously allowing me to be here today to make this presentation and make it to the community. And we want to thank them for their continued support in facilitating and growing the County Surveyor's Office. So it is my distinct privilege to speak on behalf of the professional surveying that goes on in Kern County. I also would like to thank my direct supervisor and the Director of Public Works, Josh Champlin, for his leadership and for his permission to let me speak in these chambers today. He knows me better than anyone in here, so I appreciate that permission. In addition, I want to pay homage to those that are my colleagues. I tip my hat to them. I'm privileged to serve them in the County Surveyor's Office, some of whom, excuse me, are in the chambers today. And lastly, I'd like to thank the Clerk of the Board, because they put this on the agenda last week very quickly at the last second, and they are experts in their field, and they put up with me a lot, and I appreciate all the work that they do. So on behalf of our local professional land surveyors and the Bakersfield chapter of California Land Surveyors Association, this department requests that your board make this proclamation, as you have already done, and we thank you for that. We thank you for your efforts in helping contribute to the County Surveyor's Office and the improvement and the development of our society. And like we said before in the proclamation, that it is one of the earliest professions. People have depended upon surveyors to resolve a lot of things. We did build aqueducts in Rome and many modern marvels. Now we're doing Ped Pass in Oildale and streets in Lamont, which are still just as vital and important. And so we thank you for that. Professional land surveyors alone possess the expertise to research, gather, analyze data for retracement, and establish property boundaries that are so vital to our land system and ownership. We thank this board for its role in the Kern County Surveyor's Office. Our office administers the land survey records. It reestablishes, maintains, perpetuates government survey monuments, and reviews property boundaries and subdivision mapping. The County Surveyor's Office is unique in that we not only provide a service to the public in general, such as map checking and legal description review. However, this division serves public works daily. We're one of the unique divisions that we are serving everybody in public works. For example, we provide construction staking when there is work to be done on our own infrastructure, roadways and landfills. We write legal descriptions for any right-of-way and property acquisitions. We create maps for new properties. All mapping and legal descriptions required for land division from the Planning and Natural Resources Department, they must be reviewed with the careful eyes of our skilled professionals. So all construction projects afforded to Public Works typically begin with a preliminary survey request, which results in base maps that are created by our office, and then that goes to design, and then once the design is complete, then our office goes back and we stake all of those features: curb and gutter, pavement, concrete pads, street lights, landfill, lift staking, bridges, and many other structures. We use state-of-the-art GPS equipment and other surveying equipment that this board has allowed us to purchase, and we use aerial drones. Our map room is very unique in Kern County, and I think this board should know that it has been bragged upon. These men behind me can tell you that. It's one of the best map rooms in California. And as a matter of fact, last month we had about 20 professionals, private surveyors, that came and toured our map room because it is that important. It's really great to have all of the historical value that is there. It's amazing. And so many county departments utilize GIS, and that was built first by our department. Many of the 200 layers that comprise GIS were created in our mapping division, and over 76 of those layers are still maintained today by our division. So we, in conclusion, want to humbly thank your board for proclaiming this week as National Surveyors Week here in Kern County. And all of surveying is so important, not just on the county side, but the biggest majority of it is done on the private sector side. And it is important for the well-being and the safe and orderly running of a community. And many of those standing behind me represent those private firms, and I'd like to just mention who they are. Ron Nelms from Nelms Surveying, and we have Oscar Carrillo from DPSI, and we have Jeff Gutierrez from DeWalt Surveying. And these gentlemen, they help us daily. We talk back and forth. We argue back and forth. We try and make surveying what it is. And I'll give one of them an opportunity to speak at this time if they'd like to. Oh, looky there. Ron Nelms is going to say something.
Thanks, Jeremy, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming out here today to honor National Surveyors Week. I know that's why you're here. No? Okay. But I want to clear up something. Mr. Gutierrez and I did not stake the pyramids. I want to make sure that everybody understands that we're aging. We're aging, and that brings me to a point that there's about 4,000 licensed land surveyors in the state of California. What are there, 39 million roughly? That's what we service, is about approximately 39 million people. We need surveyors desperately. As you can see, Jeff and I, I'm going to just point Jeff, Mr. Gutierrez and I are aging quickly, and we need to be replaced. So I beg and I cajole young people who are thinking about a profession that I have thoroughly loved and enjoyed my whole life. And many of us have a passion to do what we do, and we want to serve the public and do what's right for all involved. So thank you again for this recognizing surveyors. It's quite an honor to receive this from the board. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Ron. Jeremy.
Jeremy, you're an excellent presenter. Excellent.
Tell my wife and, she'll...
We're not going to get involved in that, Jeremy. That brings us to item 3. This is public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter that is not on the agenda but is under the jurisdiction of the board. We ask you to keep your comments to 2 minutes, but now's the time for public presentations. Who will be first? Ask you to state your name and proceed. Thank you.
Good day. My name is Larry Walker, Larry Walker, not related to baseball. I was recently forced into early retirement from my position as a volunteer service officer with an office in the VA clinic. This came about by unfounded complaints filed by Mr. Lopez, director of CDVA, to the State Office of the Disabled American Veterans, who I served under. He made a decision to shut the office, or they made a decision to shut the office down while they looked into this complaint. This was the second unfounded complaint sent to them against me in the past 3 months by him. It is apparent that he felt that we had become the better answer for veterans who needed help with navigating the VA claim system, which I was. Many veterans came to me because they felt they could not get the help from them. Examples of inappropriate answers given to veterans by that office. Telling a veteran that has PTSD, MST, who asked if she could get help with weight gain due to meds she was on, which is secondary to PTSD, can be claimed. But she was told by that service officer, "Sweetheart, I can't help you with that. You just need to stop eating the Twinkies." Several young vets have told me they will need to wait, they were told that they need to wait until more of the older veterans die to free up VA money to help them. Many vets came to me for help because of the shoddy treatment they received from them. They fail to have the compassion to take on difficult cases. I know of them telling veterans it's a waste of time to file an appeal of a denial, which is dead wrong. I believe that you should replace Mr. Lopez with someone that has better management skills and that will be able to get along with other service officers in the county. Our veterans deserve better. This county loves veterans. The buck stops at the top. Also, the office I had in the clinic was set aside for volunteer service officers when the clinic was first opened in 1992. The CDVA is now in there 2 days a week with paid employees. Please get them out of there.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to bring your statement to a close because we try to keep our comments to
Yes,
2 minutes.
I just have one sentence.
Do you have anything in writing that you can leave with us as well?
Yep,
Okay,
everything I read.
please.
The last thing is, I served in that office for over 5 years with no problems ever filed against me. Over 5 years I was doing that. I'll leave this with you.
Leave it with her, please, right here.
Teresa? Isabel?
Yes, my name is Isabel Figueroa. I am an Air Force vet, and I do suffer from PTSD. Took me many years to even find out about the benefits available to us, and then when they were brought to my attention, took me another 2 years to have the courage to come forward. It is not an easy process for a vet to come and seek help when we are taught to be tough and, handle matters in our own, way. And having gone through what I went through and being told what I was told was very difficult to process in the moment, but I'll be completely honest, because I already had known of Dave Foundation prior, I was able to walk away from the city, or the county, and come back to the Dave Foundation. But I do also own a small business here in town, and I do speak to quite a bit of the vets, and many of them have had bad experiences going there, and I do my best to convince them that they need to seek the help to get what they need. Many of them have medication needs, they need mental health, financial help, and if they get turned away in the one place that they know of, oftentimes they will never go back to anything else, just out of pure pride. So I do find this to be a very important issue that needs to be addressed, to make sure all our vets, when they finally have the courage to come forward, they're met with compassion and understanding first. Thank you.
Thank you for your time today.
Good afternoon. My name is Gene Shebley, Geneseebley. My experience with the CDVA was horrible on 3 different occasions throughout my discharge. From the front counter staff to the service officers behind the front counter. To the point that I had given up the help that I have deserved. I worked for the post office 26 years. 38 of those customers of mine were not recommended to CDVA. When I heard of Mr. Walker and his commitment to our veterans, I just decided to seek help for myself, for my claim, because I didn't get it with the CDVA. He guided me every step, every way, and then filed my claim, which resulted in being rated 100% 4 years ago, when it should have started in 1995 when I was discharged. I can't believe that Mr. Lopez have the audacity to file 2 complaints against Mr. Walker when they're in the same occupation to help us veterans. We're a big community here of veterans. When he was unable himself to control his rude front staff, his service officers that work under him. I had an opportunity to talk to one of them last week and asked him why wasn't Mr. Walker there, because I had a question for him. And he told me he was taking computers home, leaving paperwork on his desk and things like that, and that's untrue. I sat in there with my wife many times getting information, and everything was clean slate, just like your desk you guys have up there. And that there would be violating a veteran's privacy while they were in the office, so why would he do that with so many people in there with them? To my knowledge, no one has ever complained on how Mr. Walker conducted business during his 5+ years in that office. If they wanted privacy, Mr. Walker would always provide it, whether shutting the door or removing other personnel in the office. I absolutely agree with Mr. Walker's assessment of the CDVA and that Mr. Lopez needs to be removed from his position. And with that said, I have 25 seconds left.
No,
I
sir.
will, at this time.
I'm sorry, you're 30
Oh,
seconds
34
over.
seconds. I don't have my glasses on.
Over.
Over, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you, thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much.
My name is Dennis Gutierrez. You spell my last name Gutierrez. Okay, when I got out of the service, I didn't even know we could apply for any kind of a disability. I ran into veteran friends later and they told me. I went over in Golden State and I tried to apply. And when I talked to the man in there, I told him I had a hearing problem before I was drafted. And he said, oh, if that's the case, you're not entitled to nothing. So I was discouraged and I went away. I talked to another veteran. He said, no, that's not right. So finally, I put in for PTSD. I got my psychiatrist that I see all the time through the VA, Dr. Fan, to write me a letter. I take the letter over to Golden State. I go in there and hand it to them. They said, what do you want me to do with this? I said, I want to file a claim. Oh, so finally, they filed a claim for me. But I had nothing but problems with them people. So finally, I heard about Larry. I went to Larry. Larry has helped me. It took him a while, but he got me what I was entitled to. And every veteran that I run into, I send them to Larry, not Golden State. My honest opinion is, I think the people in Golden State were trained to discourage you, to get you to go away, because they didn't want to help you. And that's what I tell all the veterans that I run into. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not. But this man here behind me, Larry, has helped a lot of people that I know of. And to try to shut his office down, I think is a big mistake. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public speakers today? Afternoon, Mr. Robles.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Ralph Robles, R-O-B-L-E-S, and I am a veteran. And I am here to request a technical specifications report on the camera surveillance system for your ballot drop boxes from end to end. I firmly believe that you are being underserved and that the cameras are being denied their real purpose, and that is to provide real security in this election. Also, I would like a block diagram to go with that tech report. Now, I have heard reports that somebody on the staff or somebody involved with this election has been sticking thumb drives in your equipment. I would like a report on who it was, how many times they did it, what equipment they did it to. And I'd like to know what exactly was the purpose of them inserting those thumb drives, which I believe is prohibited. Also, I would like to get a report on your e-books, their tech specs, and I would like a technical description of how they are connected end-to-end to your essential computer, because if they are not working properly, it is, in my opinion, it is possible to intercept that data and utilize it. You don't necessarily have to manipulate it to make improper utilization of it. And I would like also a report of how many names have been deleted from the voter rolls since the election of 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robles. Any other speakers?
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Carter Beardsley, C-A-R-T-E-R-B-E-A-R-D-S-L-E-Y. I'd like to start by saying thank you to all the veterans in the audience. I come from a long line of vets, and your guys' service to our country is incredible. I really appreciate it. So aside from being a proud Titan at Frontier High School, I am a junior there. I also represent my community, primarily young people, in a few different capacities. I serve as a region president for the California Association of Student Councils, the chairman of the Kern Literacy Council's Youth Literacy Committee, and the Ward 4 representative for the Bakersfield Youth Commission. I'm here today with an exciting proposal for a Kern County Youth Commission to further amplify the voice of young people, especially here in Kern County. The purpose of this commission is simple. The students of today will be the leaders of tomorrow. One day, it will be my peers and I that are seated at that dais. I believe that there is no better way to learn than by doing, and by implementing a youth commission for Kern County, we can not only offer students opportunities to serve in a capacity that will help educate them on the workings of government on a local level and how to be a leader, but also by creating a forum for young people to share their concerns in a position that can make referrals leading to legitimate change. We bridge a divide between concerned young people and local government, offering the county an opportunity to hear the issues that may be facing youth from a first-handed basis and receiving an educated and formal solution to possibly implement in an effort to alleviate these solutions. As I mentioned, I sit on the Bakersfield Youth Commission, and we recently led a really fun initiative where we actually got our first budget for the Youth Commission. And so speaking to that, there's a lot of really active and civically engaged folks in Kern County, young people, excuse me. And I think that we can really do a lot with that, and there's a lot of potential for us being able to grow that and also, again, provide that education because, like I said, someday we're going to be up there, and it's important that we know what we're doing. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You going to say something, Peters?
Supervisor Perez.
Oh, thank you. I saw Supervisor Peters.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Peters.
Did you?
Up first.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Mr. Walker, actually, if you could go up to the 5th floor, up to my office. It's Suite 501, and just leave your contact information there. And I'll reach out to you guys about getting the meeting set up and trying to get to the bottom of those issues you guys brought up. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor, and also
Perez.
Chair, I want to thank you for coming forward today. You are such an impressive young man, and you put a huge smile on my face when you indicated that you would be up here in the future. I just love the confidence and the honesty in your approach to preparing the next generation of leaders, which I completely agree with you. We need to be hands-on about. So I would love to work with you in moving, now that you've brought this forward to the board, and I'll work with my folks to see what makes sense moving forward. But if you could also leave your contact information here with our CAO, I'll make sure to contact you, stay engaged with you. I appreciate that you came forward and made this formal request. It's appropriate, it's professional. You're demonstrating continually your skills and abilities, which, practice is everything. Preparation is everything. So if you would leave your contact, I'll be in touch with you and see how my colleagues feel about moving forward with that. But I'm in favor, and I want to get the ball rolling. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Carter, I was going to call you. I'd had a couple of conversations. You and I had a conversation about this in Delano. And so I will reach out to you as well and tell you what I'd come up with, and I'll have a conversation with Supervisor Perez as well.
Thank you so much.
By the way, I want to compliment him. The way I met him was in Delano at an event at Horizon Elementary?
Harvest
Elementary, where he attended elementary school, lived in Bakersfield. Your mother still teaches there?
Yes, sir.
And so the event was a ribbon cutting or a celebration of a book vending machine, where when kids do something good and they get rewarded with some kind of a coin or something, right? They can go in and actually, instead of buying a candy bar or a soda, they buy a book and they get to keep it. So, this project was Carter's idea, and did it for the school that he attended as a younger person, even younger than he is now. So congratulations on that project, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
You bet. Any other public statements today? Seeing none, we'll move on. And so the next item in order would be item 8. And item 8. I'm sorry? Oh, board member announcements and reports, item 4.
I got right in.
Seeing none, item 8. I knew there were, I just knew that, Kathy. Item 8 is a request from PSGM3 Holdings Corp. By Pacific Steel Group for the construction and operation of a micro steel mill facility and associated infrastructure, including accessory buildings and solar array on 174 acres, privately owned land located in the southeast corner of Sierra Highway and SOP, I hope I'm saying that right, Road. Is that correct? Or is it SOAP? Joel, let me know. Approximately 5 miles northeast of the community of Rosamond and 8 miles southeast of the community of Mojave. Ms. Oviatt.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Couch, members of the board. I'm here today with Craig Murphy. I'm my assistant director. This is the proposed Mojave Micromill project by PSGM3 Holdings Corporation, which is a subsidiary of Pacific Steel Group. It is the development and operation of a scrap metal recycling and steel rebar manufacturing facility on a 174-acre site in eastern Kern County between the unincorporated communities of Mojave and Rosamond and closer to Mojave. The property is owned by Pacific Steel Group. It's located on SOP Road with access from Sierra Highway to the west, but is actually directly adjacent to land owned by the Department of Defense Edwards Air Force Base, who has built the Sanborn Solar Project there. As you can see from the aerial, the site is largely undeveloped except for the northwest corner, which had some ag storage prior to the site's acquisition. As you can see, we are surrounded by industrial land, which is minimally developed with warehousing north of the site. Edwards Air Force Base, that is part of the largest hybrid solar and battery in the United States, the Sanborn Solar Project. Undisturbed desert land, and then immediately west, of course, we have the Union Pacific Railroad, Sierra Highway, and State Route 14. There are a number of actions before your board today to implement this project. They are listed on page 5 of your staff report. There's an amendment of the general plan land use element to industrial, and then a zone change to M3 PD, a precise development plan to allow for the construction and operation of the steel micro mill facility, served by a 63-acre solar array accessory. There is a conditional use permit to allow on-site capture of carbon dioxide, CO2, and temporary storage for off-site distribution. An additional conditional use permit to allow for an on-site water treatment plant, a zone variance to allow for a reduction in the required numbers of parking spaces, and a separate zone variance to allow building and structure heights to 165 feet from 150 feet. This is the actual plan for the site. They would operate this green steel facility. There is a full description of the project on pages 5 through 16, and in a minute we're going to put up a flow chart that explains how this all works. These are fully electric powered furnaces and metallurgy stations powered by an on-site solar field, which would produce 10 megawatts. There would be carbon dioxide capture technology in tandem with the on-site fume treatment plant to collect the CO2 and store it in tanks until the applicant can identify where they would like to sell that CO2. There's an on-site water treatment plant to recycle and process water that comes out of the plant. 8 of it is proposed landscape will be dedicated for the relocation of on-site western Joshua trees. So they're actually going to take the Joshua trees off where they need to construct and relocate them into a landscaping area. And then they have to upgrade approximately 13 miles of Southern California Edison's existing transmission lines in order to facilitate the implementation of this. So if we could have the flow chart. This facility is designed to be compact, scalable, and self-sufficient to the greatest extent of all stages of the manufacturing and fabrication processes for rebar, which is used in construction. So they import the raw scrap material, they recycle it, melt it, roll it, cool it, cut to order, all the things that a normal steel mill does. And it's ultimately constructed, however, with green power and with the highest mitigations to ensure protections of the air, the water, and the surrounding communities. Construction will employ over 500 workers during the 24-month construction period, and once operational, it would operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with a workforce of over 400 full-time employees, ranging from administration to manufacturing and shipping. There is a mitigation measure that, as imposed by your board on all such projects, that they make efforts to hire at least 50% of the workforce locally. I note that this is also the first conditional use permit for capture and storage of CO2 that I have brought before your board. The CO2 will be stored in approved tanks until a suitable location for either its disposal or sale is identified. Mitigation Measure 4.15-1 provides for full review by the fire department for safety provisions for both the on-site tanks as well as the movement of the CO2 to the tanks and any transport. There are a long list of specific requirements that the fire department and I have worked out with the state fire marshal, which include infrared cameras to detect leaks, special coatings for the pipes, and barriers for the truck parking. An annual payment of $100,000 shall be made to the fire department for CO2 response training and equipment for Eastern Kern fire stations. You want to leave the flow chart up there? An environmental impact report was prepared for this project in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act. Pages 17 through 28 of your staff report detail the environmental review, and all 5 volumes of the EIR have been posted on websites for both the Planning Department, the State Clearinghouse, and were also provided to the Planning Commission and your board, along with the required Volume 5, Chapter 7 response to comments. Even with mitigation, there are project and cumulative impacts to aesthetics, air quality during contemporary construction, biological resources, some impact to noise, although we've imposed mitigation, and impact to wildfires due to the project's incremental contribution to wildfire risks due to limited existing infrastructure. We have imposed additional mitigations. The final EIR contains 61 mitigation measures to reduce project and cumulative impacts associated with this project to the greatest extent feasible. The required 15091 findings of fact are in Exhibit A, 15093 statement of overriding consideration in Exhibit B, and mitigation monitoring and reporting program, Exhibit C. Planning Commission met on February 8th, 2024, and recommended unanimously on consent the approval of this project. During the course of processing this request, staff notified all the affected agencies, county departments, and property owners within 1,000 feet of the project area. All those comments have been provided to your board, along with any additional comments that have come in. We did receive a comment letter in opposition from a property owner immediately north of the project site, who has a warehouse operation where they distribute their specialty Persian food. They have concerns regarding the risk of groundwater contamination affecting their business, and the comment is in your packet. That initial comment referenced raw food preparation, concerns for agricultural cultivation, and groundwater contamination. That was the original comment we were responding to. We noted that the property is zoned medium industrial, that the package warehouse is on. They have no authorization from the state health department to prepare raw vegetables or other foods, so none of those things are happening in that warehouse. Property is permitting for warehousing and wholesale product distribution. However, we understand the concern, so we did revise mitigation measure 410-1 to require the applicant submit a description of the operational water use from the minute the water comes into the facility through the manufacturing operation to disposal of water to ensure there's no discharge to the surrounding lands. They also mentioned agricultural lands, but staff notes that the nearest crop production is 25 miles south along Avenue A in Kern in Los Angeles from this site. In further conversations with this surrounding property owner, however, they have raised an issue regarding their concerns that the raw material handling, which you see on this flow chart, could actually, if it rained or if it was not appropriately contained on the ground, could leach heavy metals, and that they have a water well. In response to that, staff is recommending wording changes to one condition and one mitigation measure. I ask your indulgence here for 1 second. So we are proposing to address this, this concern that's been raised, to the precise development plan, item 7O, which is on page 8, I think, of this project. I think I got my numbers wrong. Anyway, it's going to be changed to say, permitted uses shall not include the placement of any solid or liquid material directly on the ground, which has the potential to leach into the ground and adversely affect groundwater. Any containment proposal shall be subject to review and approval by the California Regional Water Quality Control Board, or alternatively, the Kern County Public Health Services Department, Environmental Health Division. So rather than saying that they may do it, we're going to say they're not going to do it, meaning that they need to have some sort of containment underneath that. They cannot put these scrap metals directly onto the ground. They need to have some other way of ensuring that. We're going to also propose that mitigation measure 4.9-1H, which is number 37 on the mitigation, that we add this language: no storage or processing of materials or liquids containing metal or heavy metals or toxic substances shall be permitted on the ground without appropriate containment and permits, including ensuring that no untreated runoff, including from rain, leaches into the groundwater of the area. I think this is an appropriate concern. I do believe that we have mitigated this to the extent feasible, but to make sure, I am proposing these changes to your board. And I note that these issues were addressed in Section 4.9, Hazards and Hazardous Materials, Section 4.10, Hydrology and Water Quality, Section 4.19, Utilities and Service Systems. The second issue that was raised by a property owner located approximately 1,100 feet northwest of the project site. If you'll see that northwest of the project site, Craig, if you could point kind of to that catty corner, there is a cluster of rural landowners with a variety of buildings. And they did raise noise. We did analyze extensively the noise and ensure that it would be at the level allowed by the general plan. However, they were also concerned that truck and employee traffic would use an alternative route to get up and then back onto Highway 14, and that it would go past their houses. So we have imposed a condition of approval 6R, which requires designated access routes to and from the project be confined to Sierra Highway. So the original concern was Fickett Avenue, which is more like a dirt road than an avenue. And the concern is that trucks during certain times might use those as some sort of alternative to Sierra Highway. We are prohibiting any use of dirt roads or dirt public access easements west of Sierra Highway or near these residential dwellings. We do have language in that condition for emergency closure of Sierra Highway to ensure that if for some reason by an accident the California Highway Patrol or the sheriff closes Sierra Highway, that they are allowed to navigate those roads. So we believe we have addressed a very valid concern that the truck traffic needs to use the designated roads that we have. Staff has reviewed this project in its entirety and notes the following. It maximizes the use of 174 acres of vacant, underutilized land. This is Kern County's first and California's only state-of-the-art steel rebar manufacturing facility that would help to meet demand in the California construction market. The project would support economic development of a new steel manufacturing industry, generating up to 515 jobs during peak construction and 440 full-time jobs during operation, as well as local contractors. The project is expected to generate between $63 to $77 million in gross cumulative tax revenue between 2026 and 2033, including, which is clearly a new net fiscal benefit for Kern County. Project will also pay the $100,000 annually, as well as their property taxes into the fire fund to support appropriate training that would incrementally benefit our emerging CO2 capture industry in Kern. The fully electric arc furnace produces fewer greenhouse gas emissions compared to typical fossil fuel and natural gas powered blast furnaces, and it is self-sustaining with a closed-loop water treatment capture. I am prepared to answer questions as well as provide you with a recommendation. The applicant is here to provide a presentation on the operation of this, as well as other public comments. That completes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments before we open the hearing? Okay. So I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's persons. I'm sorry. That's kind of where I was headed with that. Would the applicant like to make any comments? Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Board of Supervisors, for the opportunity to present our project to you today. Also, a proud resident of the Greater Tehachapi Area, District 2, as well. So my name is Mark Olson, M-A-R-K-O-L-S-O-N. I'm the Vice President of Mill Operations for Pacific Steel Group. I've been leading this project for several years now, so I do have a presentation that I think is getting ready to be pulled up. Just want to talk a little bit about the project and why build a steel mill in California, and a little bit about the special aspects of this project that we think make it unique, not just in California, not just in the United States, but globally. If you could go to the next slide, thank you. So who's Pacific Steel Group? Pacific Steel Group is a California company. We have 1,200 California employees in the state of California. Most of those employees are union iron workers. We fabricate and install reinforcing steel throughout the state of California in major infrastructure projects, climate resilience projects, bridges, roads, hospitals, schools. Much of the work, about 75% of our work's in the private sector, 25% is in the public sector, and we have participated in a number of well-known projects throughout the state of California. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what's happening today? Well, today, not a pound of steel is manufactured in the state of California. In order to get steel to California, it all has to be brought into the state. And rebar in particular, California consumes more than 1 million tons of reinforcing steel each year, and 100% of that comes in from out of state. And to multiply the impact, the state has an abundance of scrap, which today gets containerized and shipped overseas, or it gets put on trucks and rail cars, shipped out of state, where steel is produced in less clean ways, and then shipped hundreds or thousands of miles back into the state. Obviously, significant greenhouse gas emissions associated with that. Next slide, please. Thank you. So Pacific Steel Group is planning to invest more than $500 million in California to build a state-of-the-art steel recycling micro mill near Mojave, California. This is a pretty bold plan, considering that a generation of mills have closed in California and have been replaced by out-of-state manufacturers. No steel mill has been built in the state of California in more than 50 years. The proposed recycling facility will produce seismic reinforcing steel critical for infrastructure and climate resilience in California. It'll also help localize the supply chain, greatly reducing transportation emissions. It will utilize California's and Kern County's abundance of renewable energy and provide reliability to the grid as a demand response resource. This project will demonstrate global performance in steel manufacturing, and it will bring desperately needed economic activity to eastern Kern County with, as said earlier, more than 400 high-paying, family-sustaining jobs. Next slide, please. So we've already seen the location south of Mojave, about 60 miles straight from Los Angeles. 65% of our work is in the Los Angeles basin, 35% in the Bay Area, so it's properly positioned to be close to both the supply of feedstock as well as the end use. 174 acres with dedicated renewable energy. So as we said, this is a unique project. We're implementing technologies that have never been implemented in electric arc furnace production before. We're going to integrate renewable energy directly into our process. We're going to have carbon capture so that we can minimize our impact from a carbon standpoint in the state. This is a 50-year asset. We want to make sure that we're not just meeting the carbon goals of California today, but we want to meet the carbon goals of California 30, 40, 50 years from now. And this project will allow us to do that. We'll have secondary high-efficiency filtration. We're going to have 2 bag houses that will be filtering the air, selective catalytic reduction for NOx mitigation, full melt shop enclosure for no fugitives, and design to eliminate natural gas consumption. We will not have a natural gas line to the site. In addition to that, as Mrs. Oviatt said, we will have all scrap iron and steel, nothing exotic, it's rebar. All scrap metal will be on concrete. All of our roads will be paved inside the mill when we begin operations. So we can alleviate the concern about any metals leaching into soil. And then I'll finish up just with the benefits. I know those were just discussed. We had a third-party economic impact report up for this project. The project presents a total of $1.29 billion in total economic activity in California through 2018. You can see we'll have 515 construction jobs with 440 full-time positions at the facility. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll open the public hearing and receive public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to start with those in opposition? Well, you're going to be up right away, I think. Understand, but you can stay close. Anyone here like to speak in opposition? Yes, sir.
Maybe not opposition, but.
I'm sorry?
Maybe not opposition, but some other concerns that we're bringing up.
Could you give us your name, please?
Robert Colson, C-O-L-S-O-N.
Thank you, sir.
One of the things that was brought up before we had started this meeting was the environmental impact. That environmental impact allowed almost 100,000 gallons of water to be dispersed apart as a part of that water treatment plant. That is a concern because it can leach into the local groundwater. The second part is in exhibit number C, number 61, the mitigation resources for any new wastewater package plant facility shall constructed according to state specifications. Once this stuff can possibly, if they're going to go to the extreme of covering the ground, making sure that the iron doesn't get into or any PCBs, nickel, cadmium of the recycled material, maybe we should do that or put in to that project something to protect the water. Because once it goes in, we can't get it out. And that's the major concern with the people that are surrounding the area that have wells. And we draw that water directly out of that. Same aquifer, so once it's destroyed, we can't get it out of there, we're gonna have problems. That is the major concern. That's about it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? And I'm phrasing it as in opposition. You can bring up concerns that you have. Good afternoon.
Hello, Emma de la Rosa. I just would like to get some clarity on a few things. First of all, it says that the CO2 would be transported off-site. Can there be some explanation as to where that site is and how the CO2 will be transported? I think you have already heard many times from folks that folks are concerned about the fact that Kern County is being used as the guinea pig for this CO2 technology. It has not been proven to be effective, and yet there's still a lot of consideration of these projects happening, which is extremely concerning. Especially after hearing residents raise their own concerns about groundwater contamination. So I would love to hear some clarity on that. The other thing too, the project applicant just mentioned that this project will support with climate goals, the state climate goals for the next 30 years, yet there's still indication that there's gonna be cumulative air quality impacts. I'm confused. How does that work? If there's going to be a cumulative air quality impact, how is that going to actually help meet the state's climate goals? If you can please provide some clarity, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. De La Rosa. Other comments? Seeing none, are there those that would like to speak in favor of the recommendation?
Thank you, sir. I'm Thomas Danachek. Horrible spelling, D-A-N-J-C-Z-E-K. I'm glad I spelled it. My mother never could.
D-A-N-J?
C-Z-E-K.
That's the way I would have done it.
That's just, my father used to say, you don't pronounce it, you sneeze it. I'm here today. I've been a 50-year manager in the steel industry as an engineer. I actually had the pleasure of working here in California for 7 years for Kaiser Steel as Assistant Superintendent of Steelmaking and later Superintendent of Caster. I was General Manager of an integrated 2 million ton facility. For 16 years, I ran the trade association of steel manufacturers that represented almost all the rebar producers and 75% of the steel made in the United States. It's never fully understood, and I'm reasonably published on it, why we don't make more steel in the US. 71% of the cost of making a ton of steel typically is raw materials, and we have the scrap in this country. 15% is energy, and we're one of the lowest energy costs in the world. 10% is transportation, and we are here where the market is, and labor is approximately 10%, which isn't the big driver. I have 3 points I want to make today. One has to do with steel in the world. We make about 2 billion tons of steel in the world. China makes half of it. We're not a big deal in the US. It is for me because it provided very nicely for my family, but we only make 100 million tons. California consumes about half of that, about 10 million tons. I was here in California and worked when we had Kaiser. We had companies like Soule, we had US Steel Torrance, we had Bethlehem, we had Vernon, we had Rancho Cucamonga. They're all gone now, and to my knowledge, there's no melting of steel taking place in California. So question is, why not? Second point I'd like to make has to do with the environment, which the lady over here covered very well. Just reiterate what she said a little bit. There's no doubt that green is driving the world steel industry today. Globally, steel accounts for a big deal. 7 to 9% of the emissions of the world come from steel. 7 to 9, between 7 and 9%, ma'am. That's not true in the United States. In the US, we're primarily 75% electric arc furnace based, and that emits about 1/3 the emissions of the conventional, the old blast furnace iron ore route. This mill that's proposed to be built will have that 1/3 emissions, and I'm using typical numbers on a proven technology that there are about 5 or 6 of these micro mills in the United States, but they don't necessarily have the solar or the carbon sequestration and the other items that'll drive that number lower. So my question is fairly simple. Why not melt it here and have a sustainable, better environmental footprint than anywhere else in the world? The last point I want to make has to do with local. I don't know Kern County. I wish I did know it better. But this mill is a micro mill. It takes local scrap, rolls it in a continuous process, sells it regionally to contractors. That scrap is things like automobiles and construction scrap and so forth. We regrettably export most of our scrap out of California. It goes to places like Korea, China, etc. That's energy that we're sending out of our state. So my point is, why not collect that scrap and use that scrap locally to serve the local markets? Concluding my comments, I reiterate, I think what I said before, that why not make it here in California where we can have job creations, we can reuse and repurpose the scrap, we can service our customers better with a proven technology in a micro mill. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Supervisor Perez, do you have a question?
I have a question for this gentleman.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to wrap my head around your knowledge and expertise on this subject because I know so little. But I attended law school in Indiana, Valparaiso, and right in between.
I lived in Chesterton.
Oh, my goodness.
And so did Mark.
Oh, wow, what a small world. So okay, that makes even more sense. But right in between Valpo, directly in between Valpo and Chicago is Gary, Indiana.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is, I'm sure, a place that you know, a place that was
Spent
once.
a lot of time in Gary.
Okay, I spent a year and a half there working with middle-aged African-American men, helping them file for bankruptcy after the exit of the steel mill industry in Gary, a once thriving. I heard the stories, I heard the pride, I heard what it was firsthand from people in Gary. I did that for almost 2 years. And I thought to myself then and up to this moment, we're never getting it back because for a whole host of reasons that are beyond my expertise, but you have a sense that as the world goes, it goes. And so I'm frankly quite stunned by this project. It feels remarkable to me. It feels exciting to me. And is it really, I'm of course want to know, why have we not thought of this before? It's easy for me to say. But two, is it that the market is so large of 39 million that the scrap, that the cost associated with the transfer and transportation of that just makes it an economic model that works?
I think I understand your question. In the United States, we consume about 70 million tons of scrap a year, while we make 90 million tons of steel, okay? So 70 million tons, but we export.
I'm sorry, consume 70,
but we make 90 million tons of steel. a
Okay.
year. We export approximately, a low year, 16 million tons, a high year is 24 million tons.
Okay.
So we are exporting a lot of our scrap out of this country. What happened in northern Indiana, for example, that you referenced, is we still make probably close to 20 million tons in northern Indiana. Gary makes 8 million tons, Burns Harbor makes 5, et cetera. Those plants became less efficient over time. Their labor is double. Today in the United States, it's an entirely different industry than the rest of the world. Steel is made in the United States in electric arc furnaces. 75% of our steel is scrap-based electric arc furnaces. Technology changes over time.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the answer. But there still are a lot of good paying jobs in northern Indiana, just not as many as there used to be.
I mean, it was astonishing, the stories. People going from making $50 an hour to $12 an hour overnight. I mean, really, I saw the devastation, I witnessed it, it was real. And it drives so much of what I think about my own oil and gas industry today, and just sort of my sense about the world while not being an expert.
Ma'am, I make one other point, if I may. The emissions that came off of that northern Indiana location is 3 to 4 times the emission that this plant is proven to make. So environmentally alone, the footprint of generating greenhouse global gases, you don't have coke ovens and blast furnaces. It's a different way of making steel.
It's
All
absolutely
rebar in the
fascinating.
United States is made with electric arc furnaces. All.
Wow.
For competitive reasons. I hope I answered your question.
You blew my mind.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Other speakers? Yes. State your name.
Good afternoon, Chairman Couch and fellow supervisors. My name is Richard Chapman. I'm the president and CEO of the Kern Economic Development Corporation, and we're very excited to support this obviously innovative, high-tech manufacturing project. And for actually, in terms of an economic developer's dream, this is it. Spring training starting in about 9 days, and so I'll use a baseball analogy. We talk about the importance of singles and doubles, but this is the home run. So I enjoy watching home runs as well. And so we're excited to have been involved with the project a little over 4 years. And, I'll talk a little bit about the quantitative side we've heard about, but the qualitative side. And Pacific Steel Group has been an amazing community partner. I mean, they hit the ground running. They got involved with the East Kern Economic Alliance, with the Greater Tehachapi EDC. They were everywhere, and they were in the community, pressing the flesh and talking about the project. And I think that's important, right? To not just kind of fly in at the last minute. Talking about engagement and that importance, but also the quantitative side. And Mark was being modest because he didn't put in some of the multipliers. And we look at the litmus test: jobs, capital investment, tax revenue. But those 400 jobs actually create an additional about 520 jobs. So it's actually over 1,000 jobs in the community, because that multiplier is about 2.3 for fabricated structural metal manufacturing. That's a tongue twister, but I think I was successful. And then the 515 construction jobs, that's actually going to create about $130 million in wages over 2 years. So that's really important to factor in. Capital investment, $540 million, but you look at the multiplier and it puts it over $2 billion. So this is not just an economic development project, it's a community development and a workforce development catalyst. I mean, that's how we have to see it. The Southeast Kern is going to really take off. Obviously, we have the economic engine of the spaceport. We have projects like HydroStore and others, energy. But this is such an exciting part as we become that West Coast manufacturing hub. So really also want to thank Lorelei Oviatt and her staff, just such an amazing job as stewards of this innovative, high-tech, cutting-edge project. And we're excited to see moving forward, rolling up our sleeves and being part of that. And we respectfully ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman.
Good afternoon, Chairman Couch, supervisors, and staff. My name is Josh Taylor, and I am the president of Carpenters Local 743, representing 1,000 locally skilled construction professionals. And today I'm here to let you know that the Carpenters stand in strong support of this project. The micro steel mill will create hundreds of mortgage-paying construction jobs, and the developer has committed to utilizing responsible contractors who are going to participate in apprenticeship programs, giving local residents in Kern County opportunities for access to in-demand training programs. This project will also create hundreds of permanent jobs near traditionally economically disadvantaged communities. And PSG's proposed project should be looked at as a shining example of private investment being able to create a sustainable project development while maintaining livable wages for the construction workers whose labor will aid in bringing this community-supportive proposal to fruition. Mr. Chair and fellow supervisors, I ask you to approve staff recommendation as written. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any other speakers on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'm going to return it to staff. You had some comments there. Do you need to make any comments before we go to the board?
I do. Thank you, Chairman Couch. First of all, I'd like to address Mr. Colson's comments. I believe that the two changes to the conditions and the mitigation measures are strong and that they will not be impacting the contaminating the water. I do want to be clear, they are not using an on-site well. This water is coming through pipeline from the Antelope Valley East Kern Water District, which is 30 miles away in the LA County portion, just over the line from us. It is state water project water that comes down through the aqueduct. So they will not be overdrawing this groundwater basin. But I do want to point out this groundwater basin is not adjudicated. The applicant has the right to use that water. And there is a water well which they will determine either is to be abandoned or otherwise handled, but they are not going to be pumping water out. I do not believe there will be contamination. I think these are good concerns that have been raised, and I believe that these two recommendations. In regards to the CO2, a legitimate question. Just to be clear, this project is not a carbon capture and storage project. The only thing we are requiring is a conditional use permit to put capture equipment on a industry to capture their CO2. CO2 is used in beverages. It's used in a variety of other industrial uses. The applicant is the Los Angeles, as you see. There are many places to transport this CO2 by truck for use in beverages and other kinds of industrial uses. It is not automatic that this would go to a carbon capture and storage project, which does not exist in California at this point. So at this point, we just want to make sure that even capturing the CO2 could cause a CO2 leak. CO2 is asphyxiating. When our first responders show up, they have to have the right equipment and the right training. They have to understand what's happening. They have to have infrared camera leak detection so that we can keep the fire truck and the other trucks far enough away that the CO2 does not keep the internal combustion engine from dying. So we don't have those kinds of CO2 capture facilities. You know, there's a little bit of CO2 companies that actually bring it in from other places. So I appreciate the clarification. I am prepared to read an amended recommendation. Thank you.
Supervisor Scribner.
Thank you, Chairman Couch. This project is in my district, and it is indeed an exciting project. But before we move forward, I'm happy that our Director of Planning and Natural Resources, Lorelei Oviatt, addressed the issue of potential groundwater contamination and also the specifics on the CO2 capture. And so now that those have been addressed, I think it's on to all of the positive parts of this project. Obviously, we're all very excited about the 400 jobs that are going to be created. And as Mr. Chapman with KDC so ably explained, the job multipliers that this project represents are also very, very exciting. The fact that this is going to be the first steel mill in California constructed in 50 years, I think, is a testament to Kern County. I remember, maybe a decade or so ago when we permitted the first gold mine in California, and probably about the same amount of time, maybe more, and the last, unfortunately, gold mine in California. But I see Kern County as a place where we do things that you just can't do other places in California. And we continue to do that, and not to brag, but usually those are in District 2. And so that's pretty exciting to get to represent that. But anyway, I want to thank the project applicant for the investment in our county. I want to thank the members of the community that have embraced this project, and a lot of that is due to the outreach, I think, that Mr. Olson and others have done on behalf of the company. And so it is my pleasure to support this project for all of the benefits that it is going to bring to the county in the form of jobs and revenues and tax dollars and all the things that help support our local infrastructure. And so I will turn to Ms. Oviatt for that recommendation that she intimated a few moments ago.
Ms. Oviatt, could you address something as well? I didn't understand the concern about water to be that the project would be accessing the local aquifer, but it would be the metals potentially leaching, and I think you've addressed that, but could you clarify that point?
Yes, if I could have Ms. Kraus, if you could put the flow chart up. I have identified a part of the process which could be a legitimate concern, which is on the flow chart. This, Craig, could you point to the first thing? Raw material handling. So while it's true that they're bringing in iron and whatever he said, we all have, in Kern County even, experienced illegally maintained scrap yards, and we have ended up with all sorts of strange things into our water. This is not that kind of project. This has clearly been mitigated and regulated. And so I think that was a concern that I think we've addressed with these recommendations, and you've also heard the applicant acknowledge that they would not be putting it on bare earth and it would be appropriately contained.
Thank you.
Are you ready for a recommendation, revised recommendation?
Yes.
Thank you. Certify the environmental impact report, adopt section 15091 findings of fact, and section 15093 statement of overriding considerations, adopt revised mitigation monitoring and reporting program, adopt resolution and recommended findings, approving amendment to the land use element of the Kern County General Plan as requested, adopt resolution, recommended findings, and enact ordinance approving zone classification change as requested, adopt resolutions and recommended findings, approve conditional use permits subject to recommended conditions, adopt resolution and recommended findings approving precise development plans subject to revised recommended conditions, adopt resolutions and recommended findings approving zone variances subject to recommended conditions of approval.
Mr. Chairman, I move staff's recommendation as just articulated by Ms. Oviatt.
Okay. We have a motion.
Yep.
Supervisor Flores?
Second, I just wanted to say, I had a few comments before we go to vote. That's okay. I just wanted to say a heartfelt thank you. Thank you to the applicants. Thank you to staff and our planning department. Thank you to my esteemed District 2 supervisor, who's created an environment to be business friendly and to attract these great paying jobs. And really, it's indicative of the other California, which is here in Kern County. And you spoke of District 2. I had District 2 envy right now because there's some dynamic projects that are happening. This is the second largest one in my short tenure after the Tejon Hard Rock Cafe and Casino. But when you look at the metrics, they're very impressive. The 1.2 billion, the jobs, the tax base, the manufacturing, doing it in a sustainable and environmentally friendly way with new technologies. And it reminds me of that Irish Notre Dame game, a win-win for the Gipper. Oftentimes we sit here on this board and we take a hit. We take a hit from the state, we take a hit from regulations, we take a hit in oil. But today, because of you, the applicants, because of everyone here working in this room together, we won one for the Gipper, figuratively. We won one for the American worker, for American business, and for Kern County. And I'm very pleased to hit that yes button right now. So thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Okay. Thank you very much. That is it for item 8. We'll go to item 10, which is a request of the Kern County Planning and Natural Resources Department to update the housing element of the Kern County General Plan and Metropolitan Bakersfield General Plan covering the 2024 through 2031 planning period. Ms. Oviatt.
Thank you, Chairman Couch, members of the board. This is Craig Murphy, Assistant Director's Project, and he will be making this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Ms. Oviatt. So the purpose of today's presentation is to provide a summary of the draft housing element, explain the consideration process, and then to receive any comments or direction from your board. So the County of Kern is undertaking an update to our housing element general plan in accordance with state law for the planning period of 2024 through 2031. That housing element provides an identification and analysis of existing and projected housing needs, statement of goals and implementation programs that enable the county to meet its required regional housing allocation, needs allocation, otherwise known as our RHNA. So the document and the housing element itself can be found on the county's website, specifically under our housing page. So what I'd like to do real quick is touch base on the consideration process. So back in October and November of 2023, staff had prepared a draft housing element that we released for public comment and review for a 30-day period. Prior to the release of that document, we had a community survey that was done. We had extensive targeted outreach where we met and spoke with housing advocates, the Housing Authority, the Home Builders Association to kind of get a sense of what are some of the needs in Kern County, what are some of the things that we do well, what are some things we do better or that we could do better. And all of those conversations led to the draft housing element. Then after that, we had a review of this document from the Department of Housing and Community Development. So it was sent to HCD for a 90-day review period. That review period ended March 6th, and HCD provided a comment to staff that we received on March 6th that has requests for some additional analysis, some other things they'd like to incorporate into the housing element before it gets its final consideration before your board and the Planning Commission. So that is where we're at this particular process. We are right in between the blue and the red bubbles on this staff presentation. So after today, it is our intent to go back to the Planning Commission after we make some of those corrections and additional analysis as required by HCD and have the Planning Commission consider this project in April. And then ultimately our recommendation is that it be continued today so we can be brought back to your board at the end of April for your final consideration. So as part of the initial 30-day public review, staff did conduct 3 workshops, both done visual and in person. And so this first slide kind of identifies the first workshop was held on October 30th of 2023. We had a second informational workshop that took place on November 2nd, 2023. And then we actually had a workshop before our Planning Commission on November 9th in 2023. All of those times we received public input and comment, which ultimately led to the version of the document that was sent to HCD for their review. So to understand our proposed programs, I think we need to start with kind of an understanding of the community for the purposes of this housing element, and then specifically our unincorporated Kern residents. So this slide includes some of the basic characteristics of housing in Kern County. So from the years 2010 through 2020, we experienced an 8% population growth. We have a projected 13% population growth for the years 2020 through 2030. Our median home sales price in May of 2023 varies, but it is has a range of $225,000 to just over $382,000. For unincorporated areas between the years 2017 to 2021, we had a 4.2 vacancy rate. And then again, as you're aware, Kern is the 3rd largest land area with over 8,100 square miles. So for illustration purposes, this graphic just depicts the 12 county sub-areas that is used by the Kern Council of Governments. It's not uncommon for these sub-areas to be utilized as part of very regional analyses. And so I just wanted to make sure that I showed that so that you guys kind of had an understanding about some of the breakdown that they utilize when they look at getting our RHNA numbers. So the housing needs assessment as part of the document presents and analyzes population and housing characteristics. It identifies our social housing needs. It evaluates housing conditions and provides other important information to support the goals and programs that will meet the housing needs for unincorporated residents in Kern County. Again, our total population is just over 917,000. As you can see in this breakdown, just under 600,000 is located within our 11 incorporated cities, and then our population is just over 319,000 in the unincorporated area. So based on our projected population growth, among other factors, KernCog assigns each jurisdiction with a regional housing needs allocation. So this RENA represents the total number of housing units based on income levels that have been identified by KernCog that we would target to try to construct within the unincorporated area during this 6-cycle housing element from the years 2024 through 2031. And this breaks it down. In total, our allocation was 9,243 units, of which just over 1,500 would be dedicated for very low income, just under 1,000 for low, over 1,800 for moderate, over 4,800 for above moderate units. So that is our allocation and what we are striving to get accomplished over this next housing cycle. So this green table shows the population growth in the 11 incorporated cities and unincorporated Kern County from the year 2000 through 2021. The blue table shows that the Kern County population growth out to 2050. So again, it's important to note that in unincorporated, Kern has only seen a 0.3% change from our 2013 population to the year 2021. We are expecting, again, nearly 13% population growth from the year 2020 through the year 2050, as indicated in the blue graph. So, as shown in this particular graphic, the majority of growth is occurring within the incorporated cities, where unincorporated, again, we only saw a 0.3% increase from the year 2000 to 2021. Within that same time, Bakersfield experienced an 11% growth, California City had over 13% growth, Maricopa was nearly 13% growth, McFarland was 12% growth, and Shafter experienced a nearly 17% growth during that time period. So this green slide represents household characteristics, and the blue slide specifies our owner versus rental status. So the average household size in unincorporated Kern is a little bit lower than incorporated cities, 3.03 persons compared to 3.27 persons. And then we have a lower split between renters within unincorporated area versus incorporated cities. So as shown in this blue graphic, just over 56% of unincorporated residents own their home, whereas almost 44% of unincorporated residents rent their home. So this above graphic in green identifies the various annual housing household income levels. And then this blue graphic identifies our annual income for our acutely low, extremely low, low, and moderate households, all based on persons per household. So to be qualified as a moderate income family in Kern, a household of 3 would need to make an annual income of $86,700. A household of 4 would need to make an income of $96,350. So these graphics show the median home and rental cost in Kern County. And what's interesting to note on this one is that the median home value is just over $241,000. And then 80% of unincorporated Kern County residents spend between $500 and $1,499 each month on their rent. Again, as also shown, the price per home varies based on the metropolitan area you're located in. $225,000 is the median home price in Taft versus $380,000 in Metro Bakersfield. So this table is a breakdown of our annual income and persons per household in our acutely low, extremely low, and very low and moderate income categories. So highlighted areas here in yellow would not be able to afford a home costing $225,000. So what's interesting to note is that a single person making an annual salary of $67,450, again, would not be able to qualify for the median home price in Kern County. So, you know, there's a number of reasons for these types of numbers. One of the things that we have to look at in our housing element is our housing constraints. And so there are 4 primary costs associated with the construction of housing. Again, it's the land, the labor, the materials, and the fees. And again, these generally tend to ramp up as years go by. So in addition to those constraints, there's also infrastructure constraints. So you have water, your ability to provide sewer or septic, access to properties, and then various power to provide electricity to those properties. So as I mentioned previously, the majority of our growth is occurring in cities. Well, and that makes sense as the cities are generally more equipped to provide all of these necessary services. You know, the county itself does not manage water, and we have limited ability when it comes to managing our sewer services. So based on these constraints, the ability to provide large-scale affordable housing projects are more limited in unincorporated Kern versus various cities. So our projects need to be either projects that bring all of these services with them, or we need to make sure that we focus that these projects are located in areas that are adjacent to these services so that they can be provided. So before we discuss our plan for moving forward, I wanted to highlight some of our recent accomplishments that were used as a starting point for this 6-cycle housing plan. So again, as your board is aware, last year we rezoned over 290 acres to R3 zone district, which is our highest zoning in the county, to allow for more units to be located on various parcels. We established an online building calculator. We established a minimum 20-unit density in our R3 zone district, meaning that if you have property now that is zoned R3, at a minimum you have to build the equivalent of 20 units based on that acreage. We've established a homeless navigation center, and we've developed an online vacant land inventory database to assist the community and those interested in trying to find land that is suitable and available for housing, specifically multifamily housing as well. So based on those previous actions, there is sufficient land in unincorporated Kern this time to meet our RENA allocation. The question, as opposed to finding new land, is how do we make sure that we streamline development so that these types of projects can be built? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to take a few minutes to highlight some of the proposed programs that have been included in this draft document. I would also note that your board received a handout that extracted all of the programs from the staff report that are being proposed at this particular time. So the first is staff is proposing, once this is adopted, that we would create a dedicated housing unit within the Planning and Natural Resources Department. This would allow for a one-stop shop opportunity for all things housing related, both when it comes to addressing fair housing issues, but then also when it comes to finding and assisting the public in going through housing processes to build and construct, potentially receive funds, land uses, things along those lines. We are proposing an enhanced infrastructure financing district. This is a program where staff is proposing that if we have projects that were privately funded, where they are proposing approximately 30% to be dedicated for our lower income families, that there's a possibility they can get some financing to help construct the infrastructure. Again, is one of the biggest concerns is getting that infrastructure to where these projects are located can be costly. And so if we have developers that are willing to provide some of our units dedicated for our lower income families as part of their project, we want to see if we can help them when it comes to financing those capital improvements. Staff will be, again, if approved as presented, staff would be processing an increase in our density of all of our R2 zoning units. Right now, our maximum density at the R2 zoning is 16 units per acre. We would be coming back to your board to change that in our zoning ordinance to allow a maximum of 20 units per acre in our R2 zoned properties. Staff would also be proposing to come back to your board and remove the precise development plan combining overlay requirement for all multifamily residential districts. We believe that we have sufficient standards in place when it comes to development, when it comes to roads, when it comes to addressing concerns from neighbors in terms of when you have projects that are 2 stories, we have glass, and we have other things that help to address those compatibility issues. So staff does not believe that we need that PD overlay anymore, and that would also facilitate the quicker processing when it comes to housing authority or anybody else that is trying to provide these facilities, not having to go through a public hearing. Rather, all of this stuff could be done over the counter. We are also proposing to create some applications for expedited review of affordable housing projects and then also green housing projects as well. In addition, based on some of the comments we received as part of our initial 30-day public review, and staff has incorporated some additional programs. The first is that within 6 months of any final approval, the county will submit a required application and any materials to the state, and we will continually to pursue the goal of being designated by HCD as a pro-housing jurisdiction. What that means just specifically when working with the Housing Authority, working with the Cesar Chavez Foundation and other advocates that build these projects, when they apply for their funding, there's a point system that the state utilizes when it comes to seeing how much and which group can qualify and be awarded these funding. One of the designations that the state looks at is, are you a pro-housing jurisdiction? If you are, you receive additional points. If you're not, you don't receive those additional points. And in our communications with the housing advocates, not being designated pro-housing has created some dilemmas, and we have not qualified or not been awarded programs or funding because we didn't have enough points. So this is something that they, advocates asked us that we would pursue, as they believe would be helpful in their goal of pursuing additional funding to create these projects. Additionally, within 2 calendar years of any final approval, Kern County will commission a report to evaluate the cost and effectiveness of establishing a county-initiated first-time homebuyer, a vacant building rehabilitation or rental assistance, or any eviction legal support program. Once completed, a copy of that report will be presented to your board for any public decision, or review, or recommendation for implementation. Again, that was something else that we received a number of comments that they would like the county to have those types of programs in place. And staff is proposing a program to do some additional research and present to your board within the next 2 years of any final adoption as to whether that's a program that would be appropriate for us to implement here in Kern County. Finally, I want to just touch base about our disadvantaged unincorporated communities. So the housing element, and within our housing element, specifically Chapter 7, is an analysis of our disadvantaged unincorporated communities. Staff has identified a total of 25 communities that have been done as part of this analysis, as they have shown here on this slide. What I would like to point out, though, is that we have an additional 3 disadvantaged communities that have been identified. However, they're island or fringe communities, as defined by state housing law, meaning that they are primarily located within or adjacent to incorporated cities. So while all of our programs that we are proposing would be utilized and could be used in these communities, the overall required analysis under housing element law would be done by the city itself. For these particular sites, Casaloma, Rexland Acres, and Greenfield, that would be done by the city of Bakersfield. So again, all of our disadvantaged unincorporated analysis is included in Chapter 7 of our proposed housing element.
Hold on.
I'm so sorry. Thank you so much, Director. Chairman, I have a question.
I'm sorry, I didn't see you there.
It's okay, I plugged in, but thank you for catching it, Director. So the area, the pockets that you referred to a moment ago, those are all in my district, Rexland Acres and Casaloma. Those you said would be included within the city's analysis. Is that within their sphere of influence? Is that because they have some intent to annex at some point in the future? You know, sort of, what is the thought process there? Please take your time.
Well, I was looking for a map to actually show you. The short answer to your question is yes. So when you look at, the county and our responsibility when it comes to identifying disadvantaged unincorporated communities, a lot of them are in unincorporated areas. However, some of them are located within a city sphere of influence or directly adjacent to the city or anything along those lines. So when it comes to overall plans and programs and how are you going to provide those services, in general, the city is the one that provides those infrastructure services and they provide those upgrades. So when it comes to housing element law, again, they're considered fringe or island communities because they are basically an island within the incorporated city. So under some of the very specific requirements in terms of how we have to do our analysis, yes, it's on the city to provide that particular analysis.
I see. You're
With that being
incorporating
said,
their information.
I'm sorry?
You're incorporating their information.
Well, they, as part of their housing element, they will include and do that analysis as part of their document.
Okay.
However, they are still unincorporated communities, and we still provide a number of services to those areas. So what I wanted to make sure I pointed out is every single program that we have here, even though these are considered island or fringe communities, that doesn't mean that we can't serve them. It doesn't mean that we won't, and our programs aren't applicable to them. They are absolutely also applicable to them. It's just a question in terms of when they're categorized under housing element law, which jurisdiction discusses it, and goes into that detail in terms of all the needs and services that are needed, specifically for an infrastructure service is really what that comes down to.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So That completes staff's prepared comments. Again, I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have. Our recommendation is to continue this project until your April 23rd, 2024 hearing and that would allow staff the opportunity to provide sufficient responses and conduct any additional analysis as required by HCD before it comes back to your board for any final consideration. Again, that concludes my presentation, unless Ms. Oviatt has any overall comments that she would like to add.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. I wanted to address just quickly the Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District. So this is a new tool. It's kind of redevelopment 2.0. So the idea behind it is you have to create a public financing authority with 3 elected officials plus 2 community members. So you create that entity. And then it's not the school's money, obviously it's our money, but you use tax incremental money to finance infrastructure. So the way that this was designed with the previous, I learned all of this from the previous CAO, we worked out this idea, is that we would not automatically do this. We are putting this in as an incentive. We want housing developers who want to do affordable housing to bring us areas which the CAO can evaluate, because we don't want to do it for just one. Maybe we do it for a few blocks so that we get more infrastructure use out of this tax increment. And the way that we've written the condition has to be signed off by the CAO, but it is a tool that has made the home builders and others very interested, because there just aren't a lot of financing mechanisms left. And so we think this is also a way for us to get our infrastructure needs upgraded through these projects, because they're going to have to put in streetlights, complete streets, help parks. That is a good trade-off for our tax revenue. So we think this is an interesting proposal to help incentivize. And we certainly will count on the CAO's office, who would be the lead on this financing authority, and whether it makes sense and whether the revenue makes sense. But I just wanted to touch on that. Thank you.
That is something you are going to work on over the next couple of years, if I heard you right. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Once we get, this would be one of the programs with the long list of programs that we provided you. This is one of those programs. There's also, and Mr. Murphy can point it out, there's also going to be quarterly meetings with both the community members, as well as monthly meetings with the community, as well as quarterly meetings with developers to find out what they need and how we can move forward with what's happening and what do they need in order to move forward.
Okay. So the recommended action was to hear the presentation and continue to April 23rd, 2024 at 2 p.m. Do I need to open it ask for public comment? Is there anyone here who would like to make a comment? I see Ms. De La Rosa.
All right. Hi, everyone. Emma De La Rosa with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. So I'm here to emphasize the importance of ensuring that the county has a compliant housing element pursuant to Government Code 65580. At this time, the California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, has found the Kern County housing element out of compliance with state housing element law, which requires Kern County to conduct substantial revisions to the housing element to meet all statutory requirements. I must mention that failing to comply with this housing element law can jeopardize the county's ability to access funding sources. But most importantly, failure to comply with the housing element will continue to negatively impact your constituents, thousands of Kern County residents who are already facing the severe consequences of the housing crisis. If the words out of compliance sound familiar to you, that's because about a year ago, the county was actually out of compliance on the 5th cycle housing element. It wasn't until July of 2023 that HCD found the county to be in compliance. We cannot repeat the same thing, because there's way too many residents facing, like I said, the severe consequences of the housing crisis. The HCD's comments are vast and cover a range of statutory requirements. I would encourage you to please take a look and read every single one of those requirements that are required. And again, I have to say that there are close to 100% of residents who are low income or extremely low income are cost burdened, with at least 75% of them, 75% of extremely low income households as severely cost burdened. There's also a variety of housing conditions that are, hurting community related to housing habitability. just on Friday, a resident from Supervisor Peters' district gave me a call to say that she was facing severe health issues because of a severe mold problem in her home. And that's not being analyzed with detail in the housing element, nor are the programs actually meeting the needs to address those issues, right? So we need to ensure that the analysis as required by HCD are actually being completed. We also, again, always emphasize the need for community engagement. We appreciate the efforts that were conducted last year, but as the county engages in or continues to revise the housing element, there must be community engagement with organizations like Leadership Council and other organizations throughout the districts, because it's a whole county-wide issue. It's not just a Supervisor Perez's district issue or District 4 issue. It does go throughout the entire county. So residents need to be engaged as community organizations. So again, we urge you to direct staff to fully comply with housing element law and work with community-based organizations and residents as it revises the housing element. There must be a thorough analysis of housing needs to develop strong programs that will respond to community priorities and ensure your constituents have a safe, habitable, and quality home, regardless of race, income, or class. We look forward to maintaining communications with the planning department and collaborating with the planning department to ensure that the housing element will be compliant, hopefully within a year, right? Hopefully not wait until the last year the last year of the cycle. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Any other speakers? I'm sorry, Ms. Obiat?
So first of all, it needs to be compliant by April 29th, not in a year. So we are moving along for that. Second, these are not substantial revisions that are requested by HCD. We are in communication with HCD. We are working on this. We always appreciate the input. The League of Justice and Accountability has been a good partner in helping us in looking over our rezoning, our general plan, but we fully intend to address these issues. We would ask, and we are asking your board, public workshops take time, they take effort, and we appreciate that. And we are committed in this new program that we are putting together to have those kinds of extensive outreach. Having that type of extensive outreach between now and April 29th is not going to happen. And I will publicly say that. However, we are asking as partners with the League of Justice and Accountability that they understand those challenges, because we do need a compliant housing element. Everything from the grants that keep our navigation center going to the housing authorities grants from HUD are dependent on us getting it compliant, and we actually believe that these comments can be addressed. So we always appreciate that, they take the time to come, they take the time to give us detailed comments, but we're on a course here, and these are going to take, a big change in how we handle housing. We're excited about this housing unit. We're excited. We're working to figure out inside our budget how we will accommodate this, and we are interested in your board thinking through from this presentation any other ideas that you have when we bring this back, and any other ideas that you have that you think we are missing in this, in these policies. Thank you.
Thank you. So, having no other speakers and having that being the final comment, I just need a motion to continue this item until April 23rd, 2024 at 2 p.m. I'm sorry? April 23rd.
Motion.
Second.
That's what it says here. I want to make sure that that's the correct motion, April 23? That's what the agenda says.
That is correct, because I don't believe we have a meeting on the 29th. I think the 23rd is our last meeting in April, which is why it was chosen.
That is correct.
Okay, you have a motion and a second? Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Okay, that takes us to the end of the agenda. I'd like a motion, if you would, to adjourn in memory of Roberta McCarthy, and to adjourn until April 9th, 2024 at 9 a.m.
So moved.
Without objection, we're adjourned. Thank you.